Axiom TV. I'm your host, Tom Burritt, and this is episode number 70. Today's Axiom, we're going to go a little bit different here. Today's Axiom has to do with the snare drum, specifically with the accent tap exercise. So, as I've been teaching, the first part of the semester in the fall, it's always a time with the new students that we talk about some real fundamental concepts of playing snare drum with the freshmen and new grads. And so all day long for like 2 or 3 weeks I talk about fundamental things about playing snare drum. And I've always talked about the accent tap exercise, but never realized really how important it is. And so today's axiom is how the accent tap exercise is sort of underrated. Before we get on with that, I wanted to just read a few comments from last episode, number 69. We talked about harmonic rhythm in music, and I illustrated the concept of how important harmonic rhythm can be as a guiding principle when you're performing Bach, especially, or anything. And I actually, sort of related it to the Bach pieces, the Stout pieces I've been playing, which you can see at thomasburritt.tumblr. I posted those this week, so check those out. Anyway, so we had some really good comments. One from Travis Church. For the question of the episode, he's answering the question here. I try to find these moments in the piece where we feel a climax of something, energy, release of tension, completing a chord, and then try to build up around that. I remember doing rotation 4 by Samut and finding out 3 or 4 measures that were written as forte, and those were the biggest and most moments of the piece. I worked measure by measure to figure out how to build up to those moments and how to ease away from those moments of excitement. It was like viewing the piece from an audience member, I really like that, standpoint, and executing that vision through the performer's body. So he's dancing around a lot of things there that I think are really good, especially thinking like an audience member. I think that's one thing we definitely need to do more as performers. So Travis, thank you so much for that comment. Matt Levine writes, thanks for the episode. You're very welcome, Matt. Thank you. I've been trying to apply the concept of harmonic rhythm to a Bach piece I'm working on. I try to employ ideas described in note grouping, a method for achieving expression and styling musical performance by James Morgan Thurmond. I just looked this book up, Matt. I'm definitely going to check it out. Sounds really interesting. I've got a couple books like that have really changed my thinking, but I'm going to definitely check this out. So thanks for the suggestion. I have experimented with the concepts Anisha came across in my first read of this book. The author's ideas opened my mind regarding ways to create more direction and motion in music. Direction and motion to music. I love that. Great choice of words there, Matt. So Jeff Sass leaves, storytelling is an important part of any performance, and when marimba playing, the same is true. What story are you telling, trying to tell the audience as you play? The individual choices you make, whether it's mallet selection or harmonic rhythm, will affect how the audience comes away from the performance. For me, it is taking the next step from just showing up and playing anything on marimba because it looks cool, to begin a musician and storyteller like a violin or piano soloist have done over their history. Yeah, Jeff, I love that comment. Storytelling is definitely, I say this a lot to my students, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's telling that story, and I think that harmonic rhythm concept can really help you. Great, so thank you guys so much for the comments, and I hope you find it useful and fun to have them read. You can always see those at thomasburritt.tumblr.com. We've been getting also some comments through Drum Chatter, and if you haven't checked out Drum Chatter yet, I haven't talked about it on the show, but it's this fun new site that Dave Gerhardt and Shane Griffin and I have started up, and I hope you guys will check that out if you haven't already. Okay, on with today's axiom. We're going to talk about the accent tap exercise just pretty quickly here. Talk about why I think it's kind of underrated. Maybe it's not even underrated. Part of the reason I want to do this show is because I want to hear what you guys think about this issue. How was the accent tap taught to you and why? What kind of pedagogical process was it taught to you for? What purpose did that serve? So for me, the accent tap exercise, let's just talk about that first as a concept. Most of us have played this at one point or another. It's simply, controlling accent and then playing a tap through that. So, many of you have played this probably hundreds and hundreds of times. Of course, we work on it with both hands. I teach my students to think about that and trying to encourage them to practice that exercise as relaxed as possible. So in other words, we have to control the energy of that stroke down. When we do that, it can be really easy to do that through tension, through the downstroke. So I'm gripping really hard, coming all the way through the stroke, and the stick doesn't come up because it just can't, because I'm squeezing so hard. I don't really like that approach as much, because I think from a tone production standpoint, it's somewhat limiting. When you think about an accent, really the definition of an accent is just a louder note. It's not necessarily a harsher, edgier note. I mean, it can be. To me, that's sort of a rooftop accent. So in order to preserve the tone quality of accents, I practice literally catching the stick on the rebound. So coming down like a normal stroke, here's my normal relaxed, bounce the ball, fluid stroke that we work tirelessly on here with my students through stick control, George Lawrence Stone, page 1. So I encourage them to utilize that stroke when they're trying to do the accent tap and actually catching after rebound. It looks like this. When I execute that stroke, shouldn't be any kind of tone change when I actually do an accent tap. A tone change that might occur if I was gripping to control the rebound. So I'll just demonstrate going from several normal strokes to several accent tap strokes, and hopefully you don't hear any difference in the tone quality as I do the tap strokes. Sorry, this way. Timbre change or any harshness increase as I went to those 8 strokes where I actually did the accent tap exercise, accent tap exercise. So that's what we try to do in this approach. So creating that accent to not really be any harsher or edgier than any other loud note, and then of course controlling the rebound by catching the stick using tension after the rebound. That's the really important part, after the rebound. Okay, so that's the actual exercise itself and how I think it's a good idea to learn how to execute it. Now let's talk about why it's underrated and what situations you might try and use this in. So I think it helps us in some really key fundamental areas. The first one it helps us is dynamic playing, right? So we play dynamics, by playing lower to the head, and we have often in very challenging snare drum etudes, we often have a difficult time getting from something that's very loud into something very soft, something like where all of a sudden it's got to come way back. So the accent tap exercise can really help us because I can, as I prepare for that piano, I can keep it down, and then move if I'm going to move to the edge or near the edge of the drum. So that accent tap stroke follows that last right hand forte note, down and then move. So that's a really good example of how the accent tap can help us play dynamics well, because we can control that rebound. If I end up here after that stroke and I need to go to piano, it's way too far. And guys, I have to say that when I teach delicate etudes, orchestral excerpts, I think the number one reason why students have trouble is that they're inefficient in the way that they're playing. They're not thinking about this exact issue. There's just one of many, but this exact issue is a big one, where they find themselves out of position and then boom, there's just no way they can save it at that point. It's kind of like slam dunking in basketball and getting all excited and high-fiving, and then the other team's already down scoring on you. Okay, so being prepared to make the play. All right, so that's dynamic playing. Embellishments. So flams and drags. I think accent taps are huge. If, for instance, very quickly, if we just talk about alternating flam, take one hand away, essentially doing the accent tap exercise, and if I practice this where I can play it relaxed without tension on the downstroke, then it makes a very fluid approach to playing embellishments, so alternating flams and drags. When I'm doing this teaching on flams and drags, I'm always talking about the fact that there's a voicing. You have the grace note and you have the primary note, and there's a voicing there. So the grace note has to be much softer than the loud note. And by maintaining that accent, or that tap down low, then there's no problem there. And then we also don't get in trouble when we have lots of little notes to fit into really tight spaces, where the primary rhythm in that section, or that series of notes, would get all misconstrued and messed up because my grace notes are too high or out of place, crowding in that space. So anyway, that's a big topic right there. But so those are two ways that I think the accent tap exercise is really, really critical. It could be that this is just common knowledge to most of us in percussion pedagogy. if it is, then that's great. I'd love to hear you guys affirm this or say, yeah, my teacher taught me this or whatever. You only get a chance to study with a handful of teachers in your student years, and I'm sure a lot of teachers handle this. I'm just curious to know why. So that's the question of the episode. How are you taught this, and how important was it stressed, if it was even stressed at all? I'd love to kind of get an idea and polling you guys what the pedagogy is here. So anyway, thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed the little change of pace here. Check out Drum Chatter. This will probably post there as well. Got some really cool things. We just interviewed Peter Erskine, and we got working on some other big names to do some interviews in the future on the podcast, so you can check that out. That's going to be every week. We're going to be adding things to the site all the time to help the social part of it. So some good discussion going on in the chatter sections there, and as well as some really cool daily posts. So we're really super excited about that project, you guys, and we really hope you can check it out. So, answer the question of the episode. What's your view of the Axiom Tap exercise, how important it is, maybe how you were taught that concept, and that's it. It's Friday, fall, getting cooler, football season, all that. It's great stuff. So, thank you so much, you guys, for watching, and we'll see you next time.